What's happening, fandoms?
Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here,
We react to music videos and shows.
today we're going back to New Rockstars and Eric Voss breaking down the Secret Invasion. This is the episode 3 breakdown. We don't have any idea what's going on in this
We're
show.
so lost.
Nobody is anybody. Everybody is everybody. Everybody betrays everybody. And we're hoping Eric can help us figure some of it all out.
Hopefully.
Let's go.
Here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Secret Invasion Episode 3, Betrayed. And spoiler warning, while this episode seems to betray us by killing off Emilia Clarke's character so early and revealing Rhodey, whose voice that definitely was on the call,
That's
as
what I
a
said.
Skrull, I don't think everything is as it seems to be. As always, there are so many clues to break down, so many different conspiracy theory rabbit holes. So let's go through this episode shot by shot for all the details you might have missed. And by the way, New Rockstars has now 3 channels. This main channel for Easter egg breakdowns, a deep dive for special film analyses from me, and the break room where you can find our Secret Invasion after show Inside Marvel. Subscribe to all 3 and support our network with a Skrull inspired shirt at nerdriot.shop. Let's get started. The episode opens with the Skrulls Pagan, Xerxes, and Beto prepping to infiltrate the British Royal Navy as submarine crewmen. Sunlight streams in through the window blinds, as it does later in a scene with Gravik and Gaia. The blinds visually evoke the shredded document design of the series' official character posters. The truth will always out, but it will always be blocked by some nefarious forces. And remember, Pagan in the comics is the name of the Skrull who poses as Elektra and gets killed off by Echo, and that body's autopsy is what exposes the Skrull invasion. Xerxes is the name of the 70s Marvel Premiere Comics character, is a Skrull who impersonates Richard Nixon. Pagan tells Beto what motivates these Skrulls.
You joined the same reason I did. Not fear of the past. Faith in our future.
I totally did not get that these guys went onto the
Pagan
submarine.
seems to be more of a true believer in the Skrull
I
cause
totally
than even
didn't
Gravik is.
get
Gravik is
that.
driven by fear of the past and by his bitterness over being betrayed. And it's a shame that Pagan is essentially a pawn who gets sacrificed this episode so that Gravik can make a bigger move. Now the files that they hand out read Naval Service of Great Britain and Northern Ireland being part of the United Kingdom, of course. Xerxes is given the identity of Ensign Connor Combs. Beto is given Captain Tom Phipps, and Pagan the Lieutenant Commander Dave Hamilton. Now Lieutenant Commander Hamilton is the elder officer who pressures the other captain into turning that launch key later on. Now normally these launch keys are only necessary for ICBMs. I don't think this missile is nuclear, but it is interesting that whatever the missile is, it would require a simultaneous turn of 2 different officers. Also interesting to note that Captain is a higher rank than Lieutenant Commander in the British Navy. In general, I don't know if the people who wrote this episode know the actual protocol of how any Navy officer on a nuclear submarine would launch a missile. But anyway, Gravik leads the Skrull Council into this super Skrull chamber, including the news pundit Chris Stearns, UK Prime Minister Pamela Lawton, NATO Secretary General Sergio Caspani, and Jack Hyuk Bin, whose importance to human society we still don't know. He doesn't wear a suit. I'm wondering if he's like an industry leader of some kind. We also see the Lawtons or the Skrulls posing as these human scientists, tinkering with DNA samples. On the wall behind him is a framed headline, Scientists Make a New DNA Discovery. And on the dry erase board, we see a bunch of notes about DNA, including the words recomputation strategy and a timeline of reconfiguring DNA. It's just interesting that the Skrulls needed human scientific knowledge to lead this genetic breakthrough.
I was going to say the same thing
It could
too.
have been Skrulls posing as these humans, making the breakthrough themselves, but why would they even use the human forms at all if they were only ever going to use this research for Skrull purposes?
Right.
In the comics, the Super Skrull discovery was made by the Skrull priests of scientists, including Drogi Fenu Idu. So while Gravik writes off humanity as just murderers and savages, he needed our science to make himself so super. And Gravik finally says the words here.
Super Skrulls.
So, in the
Super
Marvel Comics, Super
Skrulls,
Skrulls was introduced back in 1963's Fantastic Four number 18 with the character of Klurt, no time for vowels, a Skrull with the ability to impersonate the powers of the Fantastic Four, in addition to their appearances. The Super Skrull powers so far on this show seem to be pulling from some of the power sets of the Fantastic Four, stretchiness, flaming on, etc. In the comics, Super Skrulls ended up heightening things into a big mess in Brian Michael Bendis' Secret Invasion crossover storyline, as most of the Avengers ended up getting swapped with superpowered Super Skrulls. Pagan, Xerxes, and Beto infiltrate HMNB Clyde HM, which is a real naval base in Scotland, best known as the home of many of Britain's nuclear missiles. It does appear to the same one here, as both sit on a river, and it's mentioned later, but you can see here on the submarine that it is named the Neptune. Neptune is the god of the sea in Roman mythology, based on the Greek god of Poseidon, one of a couple nods to maritime mythology in this episode. Gravik's plan is to hijack a submarine to shoot down a UN plane and spark a global conflict. This is a common espionage movie trope that we see in the Rogue Submarine and Tom Clancy's The Hunt for Red October, as well as the Russian nuclear submarine that gets false orders in Mission Impossible Ghost protocol. Would this really lead to a global nuclear war or something like that? Would they just chalk it up to terrorists? Or would the Skrulls and the rankings of these governments and Chris Stearns on TV fan the flames until this eventually led to a global conflict? We're not really sure, but at the end of the day, this is all a fake plot by Gravik to out Gaia. But to me,
I don't know that it was a
explain why
fake
Talos
plot.
and Fury aren't able to call bullshit on this bogus plot. Okay, we flash back to New York City in 1998, just 1 year after we flash back to Fury enlisting the Skrulls in 1997 in Brixton, and 1 year before genetic scientist Maya Hansen would show Tony Stark her early research that would later become Extremis, which comes back in this series. Fury orders his coffee black. He's not around. Also interesting to note that Gravik, by comparison, is constantly dumping sugar in his tea and in his coffee. Interesting conflict.
But he never
between
drinks
these two
it.
leaders, a man versus a child, Raisin Bran versus Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Fury meets Vara. This is the Skrull who presented Gravik to him in Brixton, taking on a new human form of Priscilla. Notice that Vara is also wearing that same six-pronged ring that her Skrull
I thought it was
form wore back in
Priscilla.
episode 2, but no
Yep.
longer wears in the present day when she's married to Fury. Vara is reading Raymond Carter's A New Path to the Waterfall, a collection of poems with an introduction by Tess Gallagher, Carver's wife, whom he married just 6 weeks before his death from lung cancer at age 50. Similarly, Vara will consider herself a partner to Fury's, turn into a widow in his absence.
Yep.
Vara hands Fury some intel saying,
This should put Dreykov's men on their heels.
this is a reference to General Dreykov, leader of the Russian Red Room, Ray Winstone's character in the Black Widow film. Dreykov's daughter was first mentioned in Avengers by Loki, the Black Widow, and was later revealed to be Antonia Dreykov, aka Taskmaster. And we see how this intel was attained by blood. Notice a bloody thumbprint on the envelope. Actually, this intel may lead to what was eventually Natasha's Budapest mission in Black Widow when she targeted Dreykov in a bombing that also discovered Antonia. We jump to the present as Fury makes breakfast wearing his glasses. Now, forgive me for continuing to track this, but Fury alternates in the show when he does and when he doesn't wear glasses in scenes. And since we know his lenses have an augmented display that show infrared, perhaps other metrics like a heart rate, I think he wears these glasses in interactions when he wants to see if someone is lying. Like, notice how hard he stares at Scylla here.
You
Yeah.
been in touch with Gravik while I was gone?
And why are you asking me that?
Because I just need to be sure.
Yeah, she doesn't answer the
Yeah.
question, and I think Fury registers that. Priscilla's human form is age. As a Skrull, she would be able to keep herself young if she wanted to, but she chooses to age her human form to keep up with her husband. Also, I think it would look weird if Fury had a young wife who never ever aged, and maybe the show just didn't want to pay for constant de-aging. And yes, Fury's nickname for her is Scylla. In Greek mythology, Scylla was one of two monsters, along with Charybdis, in the Odyssey, who mariners would get caught in between, kind of like the saying between a rock and a hard place, leading us to wonder, who would Fury's Charybdis be? Could it be the Skrull that Vara and Scylla introduced to him, Gravik? Could it be Gaia? Or is there another silent partner who we have not met yet? I'll get to that theory at the end of this breakdown. But Fury watches Chris Stearns on the TV, who warns about the rising threat of World War III.
Yeah.
Why would Fury watch this kind of pundit? Well, maybe he knows that Stearns is a Skrull from earlier years of recruiting, and he wants to see what kind of propaganda message Gravik is putting out there.
That
Fury
could
says,
be.
Even the broken clocks right twice a day.
yes, one recalls the clocks on Sonia Falsworth's wall, which represented a spy's death in the line of duty. In the office that we see Sonia in this episode, also clocks in the background. Priscilla grills Fury about turning her into a widow in his absence, which is an interesting choice of words considering that her first intel to Fury back in 1998 was to subvert the Black Widow Red Room operation. Also, Priscilla's cookware and her drinking glasses in
Green,
this kitchen,
black.
as is her top, all the color green. These Skrulls cannot help but show off their verdigris, but Fury turns away from Scylla to let her take
Verdigris.
this call.
I don't have that information at hand right now.
Yeah, Fury has to know that this call is shady, and maybe the glasses frames going back behind the ears put a special microphone back there, some hearing aid action, allowing Fury to hear Rhodey's voice on this call. As Scylla walks off, Fury stares intently at her pink flip phone, as if he could be using the scanner in his glasses lenses to perform a kind of digital Star 69 on the previous call. Scylla uses a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4. Filmmakers like Ryan Johnson have in the past claimed that Apple will not allow antagonists to use iPhones if they want to use iPhones as a prop. So no iPhone doesn't automatically mean someone is a villain, but based on her shady loyalties this episode, it could be pointing to her nefariousness.
Villains can't use
Gaia about how the
iPhones?
cops knew about the same house last episode, and Gaia blames Brogan gave
That's
it up
so
under torture.
weird.
Seems like she called the cops last episode to kill off Brogan to make Pagan's position weaker, as Brogan was his recruit. Gaia says,
I'd lie. I'm a good liar.
yeah, she seems to be testing Gravik here, less afraid of him or any tests that he would put her through this episode. Why ain't she afraid? Well, this episode's previously on reminded us that she followed Pagan into the Super Skrull room and saw that machine activate. So I think she has powered herself up with Extremis healing powers, and she is not afraid of calling Gravik's bluffs. She and Gravik arrive in London for Talos' parley. She wears a green and purple top, again, Skrull colors there. Gravik meets Talos at London's National Portrait Gallery, where they look at James Guthrie's 1930 painting, Statesman of World War I. 1. It depicts Winston Churchill at the center, who wasn't yet Prime Minister, he was the Minister of Munitions during World War I, as well as all the other majority and minority leaders of the Commonwealth, the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, etc. Gravik uses this to draw a distinction between the statesmen and the soldiers, one group posing for paintings and the other doing all the killing. Gravik sees himself as a wartime leader who does the dirty work himself. In the cafe, Gravik gives multiple heavy pours of sugar and water, calling back him using 3 sugar cubes in episode 1. This sweet tooth defies his preference for Skrull food products. In this cafe, we see the gallery also
but he never
faces of
drinks
freedom,
it.
including figures like Winston Churchill. We also see William Cavendish, who helped the British win the 7 Years' War, and on the far right, Duke Wellington, who led some victories in the Napoleonic Wars. Gravik believes that these leaders don't really deserve any credit, even though ones like Wellington totally got their hands dirty. The surrounding people reveal themselves as Skrulls,
Yeah, that
and they
was a
shapeshift
cool
into
moment.
Gravik. So much for home in my own skin. Rather than reveal their green skin, they pose as their leader, suggesting that they are more of a cult than a nation of many. I also noticed that when the Skrulls transform, their clothes transform too, but not the backpacks, purses, and jackets hanging off the chairs. So are Skrull-shifted clothes part of the Skrull flesh, or do Skrulls have special clothes that can also transform with them? Remember, in episode 1, Gaia promised Beto that they, quote, wear Skrull skins, which I think is their term for whatever Skrull clothing we saw them wear in Captain Marvel as they arrived on the beach. And it's just that some Skrulls on the run, like Beto, had to adopt discarded human clothes and constantly swap outfits, or just stay stuck in one human identity. So anytime we see Skrulls transform and their clothes transform too, I think we are seeing that special clothing that can shift along with their flesh. Meanwhile, backpacks, purses, jackets that they aren't currently wearing, you know, the kind of stuff that airlines make you stuff underneath the seat in front of you, are just additional accessories that the Skrulls carry around as props. Have I thought about this harder than the people who make the show? Probably. Oh, Talos says,
You don't understand the first thing about humans. They're at their most formidable when they're threatened by a common foe.
yes, Gravik believes that a core human trait is just this act of evil, murder. But what Talos understands is that human violence is not rooted in evil. It's rooted in something you could say is a bit more dangerous. Fear of the other. Talos is implying that the Avengers coming together to repel Loki and then Thanos, and historically for all mankind, that other is an invasive presence, another nation, another religion, or another ethnic group. So Gravik thinks that humans are just evil. Talos is like, no, it's xenophobia.
You're
Talos
giving them an enemy.
Rebels will be put down like the rabid dogs you are.
Yes, Gravik again likened with canine imagery after he said that he liked dogs back in episode 2. Talos stabs Gravik's hand, and Gravik slides his hand off the knife, but he heals it using extremist tech. This is something that the extremist soldiers had in Iron Man 3, showing that he has already become a Super Skrull.
Yeah,
the trailer shows
exactly.
that Gravik will also have Groot limb extension powers. So will all the Super Skrulls have all 4 of the powers that we saw on the screen, or some combination of powers? Outside, an old man bumps into Talos to give him this phone. This is definitely Gaia having handed off the phone that she wrote the Neptune info into, and we see this man hurrying across the street, and on the other side of the white van, suddenly we see Gaia leaning against a car. But notice that same old man is on a phone call on the sidewalk behind Gaia. So Gaia
I did not see
used
that.
the form of a nearby pedestrian that she could use to cover her tracks, assuming Gravik would be watching her. Fury meets Talos in a pub.
I got a lead on
I didn't see the guy standing there.
The U.S. government. And he's in London right now.
You know, we never actually saw Fury receive any intel like this unless he's referring to hearing Rhodey on Priscilla's phone. Fury's behavior is just really odd in the scene. He seems unaware of his past fight with Talos. He calls that traditional English breakfast dog food, when earlier we saw Fury making essentially the same breakfast with poached eggs and tomatoes. Fury in this scene is no longer wearing his glasses. Maybe reaching by pointing out when Fury is and isn't wearing the glasses, but we may be seeing 2 different Furies. And the
That's
Fury
what
we see
I
here
thought.
is a Skrull who is playing Talos. Either one
Me
working
too.
for Gravik, because this whole submarine plot is really just a sting operation by Gravik anyway, or someone on another front of this Skrull invasion. They call Sonya Falsworth, who has found Fury's contact lens that he bugged the owl statue with. She says it was previously named Hoot, now she has named it Nicholas Fury, and she gives it an eye patch. Maybe out of paranoia that there could be some other sensor tech remaining on that owl's eye. Sonya found a leak in her ranks. A man with this red beard. This actor is Tony Curran, who plays Vincent Van Gogh in the episode of Doctor Who, Vincent and the Doctor. We actually saw this guy briefly in a scene in episode 1 where Sonya met with that MI6 agent, which was seen by Fury through his office bug, clear just indicating that Sonya is dealing with problems of her own. Fury and Talos discuss why humans clean up dog poop, another instance of a hierarchical relationship between humans and dogs, and the fact that Talos doesn't get why humans would love dogs so much as to pick up their droppings. It's just another aspect of humankind that Skrulls don't fully understand. We can love a species so much, even more than our fellow humans, that other extraterrestrials would just see as beneath us. It's the complexities of human empathy that no other
kind of weird
extraterrestrial
when you
can
think
fully
about it like
understand.
that.
Sometimes it is hypocritical, sometimes it's inconsistent, but it's human. Also worth noting that Skrulls hate cats, as we saw in Captain Marvel, because cats resemble Flurkins. Talos takes credit for Fury's successes, saying he and 19 other Skrulls working as his invisible spy network fed him the intel he used to ascend the ranks of S.H.I.E.L.D.
100%
the Bogota
true.
crisis when Fury rescued Alexander Pierce's daughter was apparently thanks to Skrulls, and those same Skrulls might have been part of Gravik's terrorist network that recently attacked Bogota. So we learned that the origins of Fury's era of S.H.I.E.L.D. was all baked in with Skrull influence, therefore it's even more likely that one of the Avengers, Rhodey, is a Skrull. But I don't think it's just Rhodey. I think someone else from Phase 1 might have been a Skrull.
Oh,
Is it
what?
a little weird to have Ben Mendelsohn tell Samuel L. Jackson that everything great about his character in the MCU came from him? One episode after Jackson and Don Cheadle had a great scene about black men having to work hard to wrestle power from mediocre white men? Yeah, it's kind of weird. I would have preferred if this line was spoken to Fury by his wife, Priscilla. It just would have been more impactful. Talos poses as Bob and infiltrates the home.
Do me a favor, Fury.
Yep.
Don't ever change.
Maybe Talos' greatest fear is that Fury might have been corrupted as a Skrull. Little does Talos know, the Fury he's been talking to may still have been a Skrull. Again, I'm getting to it at the end of the video. Fury guns down each guard,
Yep.
correctly assuming that if Bob was swapped as a Skrull, so must members of his household security staff. Talos radios to Fury.
Come in, Talos.
Sorry, Nick. I was busy kicking Bob's ass.
To which Fury later responds,
Nobody calls me Nick.
yes, Fury is using the rule established back in the 2019 Captain Marvel film.
Everybody calls me Fury. Not Nicholas, not Joseph, not Nick. Just Fury.
Excellent work, Nicholas.
Now, of course, over the years, many MCU characters have called Fury Nick. Tony Stark called him Nick, Maria Hill in the Infinity War post-credit scene called him Nick, and that was before she was turned into Soren. And that doesn't make those characters Skrulls, but it is something that has been true between Fury
So
and
she's a
Talos.
Skrull
And
too?
Talos either said it here to tip off Fury that he had a gun to his head, or maybe the Bob Skrull replicated Talos' voice and said Nick into the radio. Fury responds by holding a gun to Zachary, Bob's son.
Okay.
The negotiation scene
I don't know why that makes any sense, right? Why does holding Zachary hostage have any impact on this dude who is not Bob?
Exactly.
He's a Skrull. Why does he care that he's got this human boy held hostage?
It's pure acting.
I think this is a flaw in their plot because that Skrull should not have given a crap about that kid.
Right.
I don't know.
to work on Skrull Bob, which is interesting because Bob is a Skrull. So either Zachary
Yeah,
is
he's
a
saying the
Skrull
same
too,
thing.
or Skrull Bob has spent so much time in this human form that he has formed an emotional attachment to his human son. Just an interesting little detail that's showing these Skrulls, when they are taking these identities, are also weighed down by the human emotions those identities come with. Talos eventually shoots the Skrull Bob in the chest when he insults him about Gaia. Talos calls Gaia, and Gaia, without hesitating, breaks into the fracking pod room, and we see the human Chris Stearns, the human Pam Lawton, and the human form of Commodore Fairbanks. Fairbanks is wearing his dress uniform, suggesting he was kidnapped from an important event. I am a little worried about all these humans in a radioactive hotspot. Their human flesh is not U-235 resistant. It's just, I wouldn't keep these people in this plant for that long. They're all gonna come out of this with cancer. We see how the Skrulls fracking pods
Or
contain
not at
humans'
all.
memories, allowing them to scrub through it, reminding us of the fracking pod Carol Danvers was in the first act of Captain Marvel. Among these memories, we see Fairbanks helping Zachary put on a watch, fly fishing, a soccer ball being kicked, swimming with Zachary. Looks like maybe they're in an argument at one point, Zachary watching a soccer match on TV and cheering. The memory effect is pretty cool looking. It's kind of like looking through water and puddles, like the Pensieve in Harry Potter.
Yeah,
These
kinda.
emotional core memories explain why Skrull Bob feels emotions for his fake son, and Fury used
Maybe.
that to exploit Bob. We also see how Dr. Lawton is one of the humans in the fracking pod, and behind her, there is a person of color who some are saying looks like James Rhodes, but to me, that doesn't really look like Don Cheadle. So Talos uses the code word Zachary to abort the launch. And again, assuming this is all Gravik's plan to out Gaia, did Talos really just sacrifice 3 of his Skrull operators, Pagan, Xerxu, and Beto, as well as a Skrull posing as Fairbanks and all of his security men, just to expose Gaia, while not keeping a better eye on her so that she could go off and get Super Skrull abilities? I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, when Gravik shoots Gaia outside the guard booth, we do not see her fully bleed out and die on the ground. And I think it's because we saw her on the previous Leon in that Super Skrull chamber. I think she has extremist healing powers.
That
These
could
trailers
be.
have
I
seen Gaia
totally
in a
did not
ton of
think
scenes
of
have
that.
not yet happened on the series, including one shot of her glowing in an energy field. But I do think Gravik intended this hit to be something like the hit on Sonny Corleone in The Godfather, because that guard booth is empty, just like the toll booth guy ducks down beneath the guard booth before Sonny gets shot. I think this all tells Gaia that something is off. But either way, Gaia ain't dead. We're gonna see her again. The episode ends with Priscilla
I was
retrieves
worried
the bank's
about
security
that.
box key and takes the train to the bank, where she gets a gun and takes a phone call.
St. James Church, 1 hour.
And that's definitely Brody's
Speak to Graphic.
voice.
Yeah, well, you're talking to me.
Whoa, this is 100% Don Cheadle's voice. Cheadle
Yeah.
was credited in the episode, both in the opening and in the closing credits, and in the German dubbing. The actor used for the voice is the same voice actor who always voices Don Cheadle. So this would confirm that James Rhodes, War Machine, at least the one we've seen on the show, the one who fired Fury, the one who refused to empathize with Fury in episode 2, is currently a Skrull, or at least someone in Gravik's chain
Yeah.
of command. The question now becomes, how long has Rhodey been a Skrull? For reasons I discussed in last week's breakdown, I would be very surprised if the MCU were to establish that the Rhodey we saw during Avengers Endgame was a Skrull. I also think that the conversations between Rhodey and Sam Wilson in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier were just too grounded in their shared histories as men of color working for a country
Yeah,
that doesn't
I
care
think
about them would
it's
be
a
far
recent
less impactful if that
thing.
Rhodey was a Skrull culturally appropriating the unique black experience in America. It would just be controversial for a number of reasons for this series to say the Skrull immigrant experience, while awful and oppressing, is equal to the black experience in America. They ain't equal. I just don't think Marvel Studios would go there, okay? So ultimately, for now, I'm gonna say Rhodey was taken recently. For the love of
Yeah.
God, please let it be recent. But are Priscilla and Skrull Rhodey working against Fury? Are they on Team Gravik? Or are they working to protect him? Here's the theory I'll leave you with. I think we may be seeing a game of double spycraft here. And I think there are two Furies in the field.
I think there's
I think so,
definitely
too.
two
Gravik side of the field,
Furies.
talking to people like Priscilla
We knew
and
that
Rhodey,
at the very
wearing
beginning.
glasses to see what's really going on with them, but another Fury working alongside Talos, one who doesn't need glasses to know what's going on inside Talos' heart. Could that second Fury be Soren, Talos' wife? That would explain why this Fury's interaction with Talos had been that of an old married couple, and why Fury has looked so emotional after several moments with Talos. I don't know, I think it's still possible that Soren's just dead, but I want to know your thoughts on this theory. A
That's
huge thanks to
interesting.
our team of writers and researchers,
Yeah.
Noah Chen, Eric Francisco, Gina Ippolito, and Jordan Morris for their help with this breakdown. Subscribe to all three of our channels, New Rockstars, The Break Room, and The Deep Dive, and support us by grabbing some merch at nerdriot.shop. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EAVoss. Follow New Rockstars. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Thank you, Eric. I thought that was the best one yet.
I'm still confused.
Well, I think he makes a few very good points that one, Gaia's still alive. I want her to
Yes.
be alive, and I think there,
She's
the
the most
evidence
important.
is strong there
Yeah.
that she is. Not just the trailer stuff where we know she does other stuff, but we didn't see anything except a gunshot, and then
Right.
that's it. I didn't think of the fact that she could have superfied herself.
True.
So that
But-
was
Or
definitely.
you said she could have wear like
She could easily just have had a bulletproof vest or something. I don't know, but that was a huge point, and we know that Gravik has already superfied himself because he had that healing, and I
Right,
noticed
right.
that during the show. He has that healing power, and who knows what other powers he already has because of this machine.
Right.
So it's clearly working, and she could have used it, I guess.
Yeah,
Possibly. And now that's how she survived.
right. And she's an important character. She can't just disappear.
Well, and also she's a big actor.
Yeah.
And you don't get her just to kill her unceremoniously and leave her lying on the
Right.
ground. Like although that's what they did with Maria Hill, and that still pisses me off. But the other piece that I totally agree with, and I thought this during at least episode 2, maybe episode 1, the fact that we get these two totally different looking Furies kind of back and forth without any shots of him doing this change, right? He's going from a very different look to the other look,
Right.
And we don't see that transition.
No.
We just see him appear that way, and there's no way for us to rule out that it's a different person, especially because of the nature of this show. And so I think because of that, we should definitely suspect that he is two different Furies.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, and depending on whose side he's on, that is going to mean a lot.
A lot, yeah.
So, very good job, Eric. Thank you so much for diving into this and confirming some things that we had thought already ourselves, and then of course bringing in all of these extra stuff. Wow, very, very cool. And I had no idea their team was so big. He named off like a half a dozen people that work on their research team.
I know, right?
Crazy. Plus they've got probably video editors, and I mean they've
That's a
got
lot.
a huge channel. If you're not already a big fan of New Rockstars, go check them out and give them a follow. They have 3 channels now.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for tuning into our channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our 2 channels.
Yeah, we have 2.
2 channels.
Not 3.
Yeah. 2.
It's easy, just 2.
And thank you for loving our new video, loving our channel and liking our videos. We really appreciate you guys for your love and support. And also for our show channel, we're trying to get our goal to 30K, and we're so close.
You're
Thank
getting
you.
closer.
Thank you for helping us. Thank you again, and see you in the next video.